so much. Good afternoon. May peace be upon you. Firstly, we'd like to welcome you to this hybrid webinar. My name is Daniel Andres, and I feel so excited to be host for today's hybrid webinar conducted at Directorate General of New and Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation today, 2nd of May, 2024 in Cikini, Jakarta. Once again, big round of applause to all of us. Thank you so much. And the theme for today's webinar is accelerating a sustainable energy transition with the Geothermal Institute at the University of Auckland. So we are going to listen to energy transition from University of Auckland. Once again, big round of applause to all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Indonesia is committed to reaching net zero emission by 2060 or sooner. And renewable energy such as geothermal plays a very important role in achieving net zero emissions. And to support NZE, the Human Resources Development Agency or BPSN SDM, fully support the energy transition by providing competent and professional human resources. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is a great webinar. This is a great webinar and big opportunities to all of us to study in Auckland. So this is very good opportunity for us to study, especially about energy transition, to study in Auckland. Of course, this is a very nice seminar. Look, okay, before we proceed further, I'd like to greet some important person attending this webinar. First, dear Mr. Bambang Utoro, the head of PPS Aparatur. Welcome, Pak Bambang. And also dear Dr. John Sullivan from Geothermal Institute, University of Auckland. Welcome, sir, to Jakarta. Nice city, but it's very hot. And also our moderator, Mas Aulia Rizky Pratama. Thank you for joining and welcome to the seminar. And also high-rank official from the Ministry of Energy and Resources, and to all participants attending this webinar, either physically or virtually to this webinar. All right, ladies and gentlemen, to begin with, we are going to hear the opening speech that will be delivered by Mr. Bambang Utoro. Bambang Utoro, time and floor is yours.
Before we deliver in English, I would like to ask to speak in yang berlari ibu pertama-tama dengan sudah bersuara dalam desa. Hari ini kita masih diberi kesempatan untuk diskusi pada hari ini luar biasa. Kita dengan pengalaman kita baik untuk bidang ke Geothermal maupun nanti informasi bagaimana mendapatkan ilmu. Okay, thank you for all participants for attending offline and physically and online through Zoom or YouTube streaming. Today we have the opportunity of holding this seminar that will provide us with a great knowledge regarding one of the most discussed renewable energy topics, namely geothermal. As we already know that Indonesia developed policy in energy transition. Toward net generation 2060. A part of the map is to increase geothermal energy usage and to be used in 2035. Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon, we will have discussion with our speaker from the University of Auckland, Dr. John Sullivan, the co-director of the University of Auckland, New Zealand. We know that geothermal energy is an important renewable energy source for the New Zealand, providing 80% of the energy. So we will learn how New Zealand can geothermal for the country. From this discussion, we will get more insight regarding the technology development of geothermal energy and ways to gain knowledge of its especially to higher education, particularly in the University of Auckland. I extend my welcome and utmost digital to Dr. Well, also and team from the University of Auckland. There is Ms. Jennifer and Mr. Doki. Oh yeah. For the sharing its knowledge in today's seminar that I look forward during dinner and at least from this discussion, we will get to insight. First, how to develop geothermal energy, and second, who will is needed, appropriate people, who will develop the geothermal energy. So I think we will get information from the conclusion. Okay, thank you very much and have a great insightful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Bambang, for your opening speech. I think one point of his speech is that the importance of geothermal to the Minister of Energy and Resources. Ladies and gentlemen, International Manager of Auckland University also would like to present the campus to all of us. So we should know more about the campus. Would you please come forward, Jennifer Ocean, to deliver about the University of Auckland.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And in New Zealand, we also say kia ora. So kia ora. So that's a traditional in Maori in New Zealand. We also have Māori as one of our national language. So we say kia ora. Thank you for taking the time this afternoon to join us in Dr. O'Sullivan's masterclass. My name is Jennifer, and I would like to just share with you a little bit about the University of Auckland. Okay. University of Auckland is located in Auckland, which is the largest city in New Zealand. And population of New Zealand is around 5 million, so it's only half of Jakarta. And in Auckland itself, we have about 1.6 million people residing in Auckland. About over 40% of Aucklanders are born overseas. So Auckland itself is a very diverse, culturally diverse city of New Zealand. It is also ranked as 10th most livable city in the world. So in terms of work and life balance, it's a very good city to live in. University of Auckland is currently ranked 68th in the world. So in terms of academic reputation, we are highly ranked. We are also the largest university in New Zealand, with around 43,000 students and 6,000 staff. And about 8,000 of those students are from all around the world. In terms of our sustainability ranking, University of Auckland is also ranked 5th in the world. We have 8 faculties across the University of Auckland, and we offer a wide variety of different programs, undergraduate, postgraduate, PhD, across these 8 faculties. Our main campus is the Auckland City campus, as you can see, is located right in the heart of Auckland City. So students who do study at the University of Auckland has easy access to public transportation, to facilities that are very convenient if you live in the city. University of Auckland also offer a wide range of support systems for any student that do study with us. We have the largest student accommodation across all, compared to other universities in New Zealand. So we can accommodate for different needs of needs of the students. We also offer academic and learning support services as well for students who do study with us. And we have other support services as well. For example, health and counseling. We have doctors and physiotherapists on site to support our students who do study with us. Our engineering faculty is the #1 engineering faculty in New Zealand. And this is our amazing new engineering building that's open in 2020. That's also located in the city campus. So for engineering, what's engineering about? It's all about solving problems and making a difference in society. And as Dr. John O'Sullivan will cover more, and how we, as engineers can contribute to that in terms of solving problems to make the world a better place. So at the University of Auckland, we offer a wide range of different master's programs, and one of which is the Master of Energy, where Dr. John O'Sullivan will talk a little bit more about. So yeah, that's just a brief overview about the university. Feel free to come and talk to us after the class, and we can go through a little bit more details if you have any questions. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Jennifer. What an amazing campus, right? So I hope that more and more, workers or RSN, we call it as a civil servant from our minister, would go abroad and to study in Auckland, in University of Auckland, one of the best in the world, I guess. Wow. All right, now we're going to the main programs. So the presentation by Dr. Joe Sullivan. And to help facilitate the presentation and discussion, Mas Aulia Rizky, this handsome guy from our ministers, would be excited to be a moderator for this webinar. And could you please, Dr. O'Sullivan, and also Mas Aulia, could you please come forward and take a seat at the front? Yeah, could you please, Dr. Sullivan, and also Mas Aulia to take the seat at the front. And before Mas Aulia start the program, I'd like to read a little bit about our moderator. So his name is Aulia Rizky Pratama. He is a policy analyst and also a sub-coordinator of Geothermal Partnerships. And he earned his master's degree from University of Auckland in 2017. Is that right, Mas Aulia? Okay. So without further ado, let's give applause to Mas Aulia Rizky Pratama. The time is yours, Mas Aulia.
Yes. Thank you for introducing us. Well, it's been an honor for me to become your moderator in this wonderful event. Well, as far as I know, New Zealand has successfully shifting the energy sectors from fossil fuels into renewable, and currently the renewable portion in the energy mix is around 88 or 90%. So Dr. John O'Sullivan, one of the lecturer in the Geothermal Institute of the University of Auckland, will talk about us, about the energy transition, and also about the geothermal energy. And perhaps we can grab some insights about how is the strategic way to shifting the energy sectors from fossil fuels into more renewable energy sectors. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Dr. John O'Sullivan to make his presentation. So please come forward, John. The floor and the time is yours.
No Irene me haina oku tupuna, ko O'Sullivan toko whānau, ko Waipapa tau matarau toko hapori, e noho ana au ki ngā whenua me ngā wai tapu o Ngāti Whātua. Tēnei ka mihi, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone, salam alaikum. Oh, I'm John O'Sullivan. Oh. And I've just introduced myself in Te Reo Māori. As my colleague Jennifer said, we have two official languages in New Zealand. One is Māori, the language of our Indigenous people. And what I said was where my ancestors are from and where my places in the world in the University of Auckland and with the people of the Ngāti Whātua. I'd like to thank the ministry for welcoming us here today, and particularly Pak Parahoro and Pak Bangbang, and also Pak Kiki for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here. Great to see old friends, Marsolia as well. And thank you to the MC for the kind introduction. I've been to Indonesia many, many times. I have a lot of friends here and it's great to be back. You can see I'm wearing my batik. Thank you. Unfortunately, as I get older, my batiks stop fitting, so I have to get more batiks each time. So, but this one, I hope it's good for a couple of years. So, as Marsolia mentioned, we're going to talk about trying to accelerate towards accelerate the energy transition in a just and sustainable way. This is a master class, and I know that there are a lot of very skilled, intelligent, capable people in the room. So there's going to get some technical detail around some of specific technology that we're using. So I will give a brief introduction about the Geothermal Institute and its place in the University of Auckland in New Zealand. And then I'll talk about what we're doing to support that the sustainable and just transition. I'm going to talk about teaching and capacity building and its importance. And then I'm going to move on to a technical session around geothermal modeling in particular, which is my specialty, or one of my main specialties. And I'll talk lastly about opportunities to collaborate with the ministry. So as I mentioned, I'm the co-director of the Geothermal Institute. I am from New Zealand. I was born in Auckland. I studied at the University of Auckland, so I understand how it is to be a student there. It was a long time ago. I turned 50 2 weeks ago. And so I don't look it maybe, but but I understand what it's like to be a student at the university. I lead several projects, many projects in geothermal energy around the world. I recently have done a lot of work with Pertamina Geothermal Energy and also Jacobs and Dieng here in Indonesia, but also in New Zealand, the USA, Nicaragua, Iceland. As I mentioned, I'm educated at Auckland and also at Stanford. I did some of my postgraduate at Stanford, so I also understand what it's like being studying in a different environment, a different culture. Probably people think New Zealand and America, the USA are quite similar. They're not. It's quite a culture shock to go from New Zealand to the USA. I've spent 25 years or more now studying mathematical modeling for complex systems and focused particularly on geothermal for over 15 years. And as I said here, we're going to, my main areas of expertise are reservoir engineering, modeling, resource assessment, uncertainty quantification, and also some around wellbore modeling as well, which we'll talk about today. So the Geothermal Institute is part of the University of Auckland. We focus on education, research, and consulting. We also work with Uni Services, which is the corporate commercial side of the University of Auckland. And so for that, they manage our consulting work. As it was established in 1978, so it's just 4 years younger than me. And we're going to be having a big celebration in 4 years' time, celebrating when the Geothermal Institute turns 50. I'm the co-director and I lead the Geothermal Institute with Associate Professor Sadiq Zarouk, who is also a very well-known, very good geothermal specialist. And we've had many, many years of collaboration with Indonesia, partner in Indonesia. As I was mentioning in the meeting earlier with Pak Bang Bang, my father worked on Kamajang and Darajat in the 1980s and 90s. He came home when I was 12, 13, 14 with Indonesian puppets, and I had never met anyone who'd been to Indonesia before. And it was, so I've been hearing about these amazing resources in Indonesia for most of my life. We have a really strong, our focus is on education, capacity building, and knowledge transfer. That's what's the most important part of driving a good transition. We've got over 1,800 graduates, and I think between 1,300 and 1,400 graduates are from Indonesia, and a lot of them are now very senior professionals. Some are even retired now, even as well. So if you look through your organization and other organizations in the geothermal industry, you'll find our graduates everywhere. What's very important for us is to continuing to build these key relationships, enduring long-term relationships with our stakeholders and partners. And we're really committed to sustainable development. It's so wonderful to hear everyone here talking about the 2060 ambition for net zero. It's in the front of everyone's mind, and it's in the front of our mind at the Geothermal Institute and the University of Auckland. And that's not just net zero for carbon, but we're looking for long-term, intergenerational, economic, environmental, social, cultural sustainability. Okay. On the knowledge transfer front, we're very, very lucky to have had some of the world's leading experts in geothermal working at the University of Auckland and the Geothermal Institute. You'll recognize some of the people here, Manfred Hochstein, Stuart Simmons, there's Chris Bromley, Sadiq, that's my father, Mike O'Sullivan. Of course, Ibu Priyutami comes and teaches regularly. And Rosalind Archer, Roland Horn, some of the younger people, Michael Gravatt is a younger person coming through, and Bridget Lynn and myself and Sadiq, but many, many very prestigious people have been part of the Geothermal Institute and contributed. Ibu Nini Sabtaji, obviously as a graduate as well. And we've got world leading partners. We've been working with PGE a lot recently. These are people that we've got long-term relationships. Contact Energy, who run the Wairaki power plant, which has been operating for more than 60 years now. We've been collaborating with them for over 30 years. Berkeley National Lab in the USA, we've been working with them for at least 30 years. So Sequent, Jacobs, Mercury, EDC, GNS, Eastland, these are all companies that have a long record in geothermal and we've got long-term relationships with them. So we all agree geothermal energy has an important role to play in the energy transition. And capacity building, knowledge transfer, as we've heard all the speakers mention, they're critical to ensuring that we're going to have equitable access to that renewable resource. And improving geothermal technology is going to increase its impact and accessibility. We're going to be de-risking new developments, improving operational efficiency, increasing the use of direct heat and access to advanced tools, and maybe even the co-production of minerals has become a very important part of geothermal in recent years. And if we look at the sustainable development goals, I think we're hitting at least 8 of those 17. So geothermal has an important role to play. And here at the ministry, you're going to be responsible for supporting many of these aspects of that transition, particularly de-risking new developments, looking at the increasing use of direct heat and co-production of minerals. So in terms of teaching and capacity building, as Jennifer showed you, we offer a wide range of courses at the University of Auckland. There are lots of options from lots of leading experts that'll be on the teaching team. In geothermal, we have a 6-month postgraduate certificate. We have the Masters of Energy, which is 12 to 18 months. And a key part of that master's degree is that the projects can be industry focused. So that means if you come from the ministry, you bring projects that you want to work on as your research project, and we will support that. Right now, I've got 7 master's students from Indonesia, and all of them are working on industry projects. 5 of them are looking at resource evaluations of Indonesian early stage development systems. We also do PhDs as well, of course, and that's 3 to 4 years of study and intense research into a particular focus area. We do short courses. There's some of your colleagues may be in New Zealand right now. We've got a short course on geothermal project management with Indonesian and Filipino students right now. And and we do webinars. I'm doing one with you right now. And another key one is the opportunity for mentoring. So thinking about bringing projects down to New Zealand for a short amount of time and working together with our experts to help you with a specific project. And these are some of our students. One of the great things about New Zealand, like Indonesia, is we have access to the geothermal systems themselves. So it's not just academic, but you get a hands-on education where you can interact with the geothermal developers themselves. We do teaching internationally as well. We've been doing modeling training, geothermal modeling training at Reykjavik University in Iceland for several years now. We've just gone up to Taiwan and given short courses in Taiwan at ITRI. We have a mentoring program with PGE. Here's my team. You'll recognize some of the people in the photo there from PGE. And also this is, we work with, we were doing pre-conference workshops at IIGCE, and here's our team at enjoying some of the amazing food here in Jakarta. With support from the New Zealand government, we're doing outreach in terms of webinars. This is webinars that we've been doing in East Africa, in partnership with the Africa Geothermal Centre of Excellence and the African Union and the African Geothermal Facility, supported by the New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And we even did some of it in French this year. So outreach, capacity building is a really important part of what we're doing. That partnership with MFAT is important for delivering the short-term projects, and we have Manaki scholarships for these short-term courses. Here's all the team down at Wairaki and at our graduation event. This was this is in February, and you can see some of your Indonesian colleagues there involved in the pofari, the welcome onto the Māori Marae. This is I think this is the course you were at, right? Olia? Yeah, this is your course. Yeah. I don't have my glasses on, so I apologize. All right. Now we're going to get to the masterclass technical session. And I'm going to talk in particular about our geothermal modeling group, which is led by my father, or created by my father. It's led by myself and him, Professor Mike O'Sullivan. So he is really not just my father, but the father of reservoir modeling for geothermal. When I was 6, we went to Berkeley in the US, and Mike worked with the Carsten Pruss, who created TUF2, which is the industry standard for geothermal reservoir modeling tool. And Mike worked on the first CO2 equation of state. So I'm 50. That's 46 years ago that Mike's started working on that, and he's been influential on how reservoir modeling has been used in the geothermal industry. We've got one of the largest dedicated groups in the world. We have 12 full-time staff, 10 of them are geothermal modeling experts, 9 of whom have PhDs in modeling technology, and 2 that are full-time specialists in modeling uncertainty. We have interns, 5 to 6 interns annually, and we have a lot of, as I mentioned, we've got 7 Indonesian masters, 1 from Japan. This is just in my team, and 3 PhD candidates. So what we're going to do is I'm going to focus on the topics on the left, on your right, which we're all talking about how to use improving geothermal technology to increase its impact and accessibility, and particularly around de-risking new developments, improving operational efficiency, increasing the use of direct heat, and access to advanced tools and co-production of minerals. And I'm going to, I'll talk through each of these topics on the right in a bit of detail in this session, but it'll be, I'll introduce them as they come through. So one of the things that we've been doing, I think I first presented our concept of having integrated modeling approach at the ITB workshop back in 2016, I think. So it's nearly 10 years ago. And so we've been using a standardized approach now of having a digital conceptual model. We do that using Leapfrog from Sequent, Leapfrog Energy, but you could use any geological modeling tools that, if that's what you like. And then we have a standardized system for the input data from your geothermal system. And we use a standardized set of tools for the end-to-end modeling process, from setting up the models, calibrating the models, generating model forecasts, and doing uncertainty quantification. And I'll talk more about uncertainty quantification later. So the whole point is that we use the same tools on every project. And that sounds like a simple idea, but it's a relatively new idea in geothermal modeling. Usually, historically you have small groups working on specific problems and applying specific tools. And in the standardized approach, what it means is that we can do things much more rapidly because the tools are standardized. That means different people can use the same tools more easily. It means that we can do things very quickly. So we've done some projects last year for PGE where we developed a digital conceptual model, a numerical model, and we calibrated it inside 1 month. And we did uncertainty quantification on top of that very quickly. By using standardized tools, it means that things are done correctly, consistently, and quickly. And it also, by using standardized inputs, it means things are transparent to the stakeholders. So for instance, in the ministry, as you start to look at more greenfield sites and more opening up new resources, it's going to be very important to understand that the resource estimations have been done following a standard practice and that it's transparent to you and your team what the developers have done. And these are just examples of digital conceptual models and how they map explicitly onto our numerical models. We also developed a reservoir simulator. It's called Waiwera, which means hot water in Māori, Te Reo Māori. And it was officially released in 2019. It's free, it's open source, and it's very powerful. It's a modern replacement for Tough 2 or Petrosim inside Tough 2. And it was developed at the Geothermal Institute in partnership with GNS with funding from the New Zealand government. Now, we did that because at the time, Berkeley had stopped developing Tough 2 and Tough 3, and we needed a modern tool. And so this is our modern tool, and we found it to be very, very successful, and we use it on commercial projects throughout the world, including many here in Indonesia. One example is the Contact Energy project in Wairaki Tauhara. This is a very long-term relationship. 30 plus years we've been working with Contact doing their forecasting of their resource. And so they use our reservoir engineering, reservoir modeling to help them understand the permitting for the next 30 years. So that will mean by the time this finishes, Wairaki will have been running for nearly 100 years and providing electricity. How to planning the expansion, where the wells will go. There's actually a new development, a new area of Wairaki called Tauhara, which has been opened up. And we're also helping to support approaching net zero by looking at how we can re-inject all of the CO2 to make it completely net zero. Last year, or the last 3 years now, we've been working closely with PGE and doing modeling of Lahandong and Kamajang as Karaha in 2022. This last year, we've worked looking at newer systems, Sangopanu, Book It Down, and a key part of these projects is knowledge transfer. So not just look at this is the Lahandong model at the top and the Kamajang model beneath it. And so not only looking at these established systems, but also looking at new developments and resource assessments for new developments. And a key part is knowledge transfer, handover training. And as I mentioned on Monday, we've got people team members from PGE coming for mentoring in New Zealand. And also a really important part of this has been working with our local partner, Geoenergist, who have been fantastic in supporting and developing these projects, are key to the success of our modeling work here in Indonesia. Okay, this is a project in France where we're looking at up the top there. A lot of people don't know this, but Paris, 25% of the heating in Paris comes from geothermal energy. So in the middle of the old Paris city, they drill geothermal wells to 4 kilometers and they produce direct heat energy. And so up there is a map of Paris. You can see the Eiffel Tower, and underneath it, they drill down into the deep geothermal aquifer. It's low temperature, but this just highlights the potential for non-electrical use of this geothermal resource. And this is going to offset a lot of carbon by providing heating in the winter and cooling in the summer in Paris. And so we've come up with some innovative modeling approaches to monitor. This is showing how the cool plume spreads out over time from 2010 to 2021. And an important part of managing that resource into the future is making sure you can forecast it with good modeling techniques. Okay.
John, sorry, before you start, continue your slide, could you please move the mic closer to you?
Oh.
So that our participant from the Zoom can follow your speech. Thank you. Yes, I think it's better.
There we go. Oh, that's good. Then I can walk around. Okay. So uncertainty quantification is forecasts. You want to give a range of forecasts so that you can make much more robust decisions. And what we've done at the Geothermal Institute and the University of Auckland is, now that we have the ability to set up models quickly and consistently, and we can run those simulations very quickly with Waiwera, our modeling software, we can combine them with some advanced mathematical tools, and we can do genuine, robust uncertainty quantification for geothermal models. And so we do that. Essentially, what we do is we take the information we have, and it's the same information that you would do a normal resource assessment with, maybe some downhole temperatures, geothermometers, maybe some production pressures and enthalpies if you have done some production, but if you don't, it doesn't matter, and geophysics data. And then what we do is we make thousands of models that are all physically consistent, and we filter them to the ones that fit the data we have. And but the great thing about this method is it can be extended to any data that you can gather. So if there's new data that comes in terms of new geoscientific techniques, or you gather more downhole temperatures, then we can add the data in, and you can easily update your uncertainty quantification. And it means that you can produce things like this, where we can now produce probabilities of where we think you're going to encounter boiling in a particular geothermal system. So here, the darker the red, the more likely it is that you're going to encounter a boiling. And that might be really important, for example, in this area here, where potentially you're not in the boiling zone at all here. Only some of the models, red means that we're forecasting 100%, and the light green is a lower percentage. The same sort of thing when we can forecast what sort of temperatures we would expect. And so this is now showing where we expect to find 200-degree fluid with the percentage. So based on the evidence, where it's red, which shows that 100% of our models are anticipating more than 200 degrees. But it could be very important, again, when you're looking at targets for drilling in the margins. And what it means in terms of your forecasts is we get ranges of forecasts. Now, every single line on there, the gray lines are all forecasts from different models. Instead of having one model, we now have thousands of models that represent the system. And it means that we can get P90s, P10s, P50s, and we can test different scenarios. So this is a case where we don't do any more investment. And this is a case where we start drilling new production wells. And you can see how the idea is, here's some production history, which is the small dots. And so all of the models match the data quite well. And then you can see when we don't produce many more wells, there's still a range of possible outcomes. But it's not the range isn't too big because we know quite a lot about the wells already. But in this case, again, we're matching, it's the same data, we're matching it well, but you can see you get a much, much bigger range of outcomes when you're drilling new wells or exploring, essentially. So this is the kind of tool that oil and gas and petroleum have been using for years, and it's now possible in geothermal with our innovations. And one of the benefits of this is you can apply it even when we don't have any wells, even when we are at a very early stage of development. And so the classical method, the traditional method for resource assessment is a stored heat calculation, which was developed over 50 years ago. So it's even older than I am, okay? And I know it's the standard method and it's a great first approximation, but it's 50-year-old technology, okay? And so now it uses a very simple model that makes some very simple approximations to the geothermal system, and then does a very simple statistical Monte Carlo sampling. But one of the key factors in the traditional stored heat is the recovery factor, which is very, very important and very uncertain. So when you're trying to estimate how much resource potential there is, the recovery factor affects these distributions in a huge way, which makes it very difficult for people planning, like here at the ministry. So what we've found is that by using our new innovative uncertainty quantification, well, it's not that new anymore, we've been doing it for about 5 years now, but combining it only with geoscience exploration data, we get a new method for geothermal resource assessment. And that what that looks like is we build a digital conceptual model, just like you would build for any exploration system if you're going to plan drilling exploration wells. We take that model and generate thousands of numerical models. And then imagine if we haven't drilled any wells, but I've put these downhole temperatures for future wells that we might drill. And you can see every gray line is a different reservoir model. So there's thousands of models and thousands of possibilities. You can see this is 200 degrees different across the different models. And then what we say is, well, which of those thousands of models agree with the clay cap? And you can see some of the models, we have a clay cap that we can characterize with geophysics in the same way that we use it for a resistivity boundary when you're doing a stored heat calculation. But the clay cap has more information than just the boundary. And we can use it to say which of the models match the clay cap, like this one here on the right, and which ones don't, like this one here on the left. And then what that does is you can see how we choose some of the red lines rather than all of the gray lines. And then once you've done that, you can take all of those models that were a reasonable fit to the information you have, the exploration data, and we can forecast forward with them and do that in a realistic way using realistic extraction techniques based on wellbore modeling, based on the technology of the power plant. And it means that you don't have to rely on the recovery factor anymore. We don't have to estimate it, and it can all be customized to the types of development you're planning. So if you're thinking about binary, then you'll end up with different sets of forecasts than if you're thinking about a flash system. And that results in this kind of thing where we get a forecast range of power and so instead of saying the resource potential is 100 megawatts or 88 megawatts, this is a P50, we're going to say the resource potential over 20 years at the P10 is 150 and the P90 is 37. And that range can be tightened up as you get new data. So it's a very powerful new tool, which we've applied now commercially in several systems. We've also been looking at supercritical modeling. So this is the ability to model the deep roots of the geothermal systems, temperatures over 350 to 370 degrees, and looking at modeling how different systems interact. So these are in Iceland. This is a peninsula with 3 different geothermal systems that interact. This is in the Taupo volcanic zone in New Zealand, where these are all geothermal systems, and this is a 350-degree isosurface. And that it's going to be important when we're looking at the resource potential in Indonesia, particularly for hot systems like Dieng and Lahandong, and looking about the long-term future if we want to potentially dig deeper or maybe even look for undeveloped geothermal systems that are deeper and hotter. So it's important for de-risking to understand how these deeper, hotter systems work. So a key change in the last 2 years is that these advanced modeling tools we're using are now available in the cloud. And I'm really the first country to work with us on having their own cloud for cloud-based reservoir modeling was Indonesia. And it was with PGE that we set that up. And that's fantastic because it gets around a whole set of issues around data security, data sovereignty, so that if you set up a cloud in Indonesia, then that all the data remains within Indonesia. But the key point of the cloud is that it means that it's everywhere, anywhere in the world you can use it. You don't need to spend a lot of money on expensive computers. You spend the money on running the models in the cloud. And so we're running typical production models in 3 minutes as opposed to 8 hours. And that completely changes everything when you can run these forecasting models so quickly. And the cost is less than $1. So it opens up all this possibilities, and it will be a real game changer for the geothermal industry. So I think the ministry, you need to be across this technology coming, because it's going to become the industry standard of how people estimate how geothermal systems work. We're also looking at operational efficiency. And so to do that, we're working on a new set of transient wellbore modeling tools, which will let us understand how things change in a geothermal system over time, and complex behavior, and simulate wells with lower pressures to flow. And this is something that might become more important as you're looking for new resources to develop. The easy ones have all been done. Kamajang is an amazing resource, and it was developed a long time ago. Now, as we look to get to 11 gigawatts by 2035, we have to develop harder systems. So that means having tools that will help us when the systems are harder to develop, like having lower pressures and requiring stimulation. So I hope this runs. So this is a case of showing we have an under-pressured system. So even though it's hot, it's not flowing because the pressures are too low. And we're going to inject air here to make the pressure lower so it'll start flowing in the wellbore. And it didn't flow initially, but then we found with this modeling study what sort of flow rates they would need to make it flow. Here, this is just some details around the boundary. So essentially how we're injecting the air into the well to represent this case. So this is what it looked like when it wasn't flowing. So quite hot. This is a downhole temperature. So down the well, 250 degrees. So quite hot, but low pressure, only 60 bar. And you can see it's not flowing. It's got a gas cap here of condensate and air, and it's not flowing. And if we inject some air at about 0.1 kgs per second, you could see that you lift the column a little bit, but it still doesn't flow. But then we've increased it to 0.05 kgs per second, and you can show that this will then allow this well to flow. So again, we've got pressure, downhole temperature. So you can see 250 degrees. There's zero flow rate. And there's a mixture of, it's mostly all liquid with only a little bit of vapor in it. And I think, will it run? You might need to click on that plot to click on this video to run it. Oh, no video? Okay. Okay. You take my word for it. It starts running after a little while. But it's quite interesting to see how that works. A similar thing is talking about doing it with CO2. Now we're thinking about how much CO2 can we add back into the reinjection if we're going to be net zero. Geothermal is a wonderful resource in terms of sustainability, renewable resource. There is often some CO2 in the fluid. Some systems it can be a lot, some systems it can be very low. But the best thing we can do is put it back in the fluid and re-inject it. And so with these advanced tools, we can now work out how much CO2 you can add into the re-injected fluid to make sure that the CO2 stays in solution while you're re-injecting it. And this is interesting too, because when we're thinking about economic opportunities, it may be possible to capture CO2 from industry or from other sources and do some CO2 sequestration in the geothermal reservoir as well. So advanced tools like this are important for studying that. And this is another video that will show how the CO2, how much CO2 you can inject into the reservoir before the wellbore can't accept any more CO2. But we'll find a way to share these videos so people can view them later. Oh, that looked like it was going to go. Yeah? Can we play it? Oh, no. Oh. If you wave the mouse around on it, maybe it'll go. No? No. Okay. All right. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the potential for extracting rare minerals from geothermal brines. And so an important one is lithium has been identified, and not just from an economic point of view, though this is work that we did with the Americans at Berkeley on a system called Salton Sea in the USA, and it was published as part of a report for the Department of Energy in the USA. And the estimates were nearly $3 billion worth of lithium. So a huge amount of economic benefit, but also really valuable in terms of energy security. It means that if you can produce your own rare earth elements that you might need for your energy transition, particularly batteries, it makes it more secure. And so this is the same approach. We're modeling a geothermal system. Here's our digital conceptual model, the geothermal plume, some faults and geology, the hot plume. And then what we do is we model the amount of lithium that can be produced. by matching the different chemistry. So this is sort of advanced modeling where we're matching chemistry production and we add in the lithium. This is the lithium concentration at the top there in the production history. And you can see here, this is sort of showing how the lithium plume changes over time. And you can do these scenarios and we published this at the Stanford workshop this year, showing how by controlling your reinjection locations, you can manipulate how much lithium you can produce into the future. And you can increase the lithium production by up to 30% by managing the resource using these advanced modeling techniques. And this is you can see this one just shows a small effect on enthalpy over time, a small decline. So basically, you're co-producing minerals at the same time as continuing to produce energy at almost no cost. So you get that $3 billion of minerals essentially for free. Okay, I'm just about finished. I just really, so as a group, our opportunities to collaborate, we've started the journey. It was fantastic to sign the MOU with the ministry in 2022. And we need to think about now, what are the steps? Pat Perora said, we need to crack the egg and take those steps. We're very aligned already. The goals in the ministry are similar to the goals at the University of Auckland and the Geothermal Institute. There's a lot of opportunity for capacity building and knowledge transfer in New Zealand. We really do we can work on joint research projects focused on Indonesian issues and challenges. We're also available to provide that expert advice and reviews. As Mas Aulia said, we're very privileged to already be 90% renewable, so we have some experience around that transition to a net zero energy system. And we were really very glad to have delegations from the ministry visiting New Zealand, and I think it's a good idea to keep that up. Please consider coming to our geothermal workshop in November. This is, if you look carefully, you'll probably see some of your colleagues there from last year. So really, when we talk about our world-leading enduring relationships with our world-leading partners, let's get the ministry up there as well, okay? Tēnā kasi, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much. Oh, and all of the references that we talked through are here, available on the slide.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. John O'Sullivan, for your presentation. Again, please, participant, give big applause to Dr. John. So for the next session, I will open up to 2 questions from the participant who joins here. You are welcome to raise your hand, introduce yourself, and ask the question both in Bahasa and in English. So perhaps anybody want to ask? Yes, please, Pak.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aulia and Dr. John O'Sullivan. My name is Budi. I came from research for research and development for oil and gas, LEMI gas. I would like to ask you a question referring to your presentation based on your experience in many countries. Will geothermal energy be ready and be reliable enough to take over the oil and gas lion's share as the main energy to power electricity for a whole country, and especially in terms of stable supply every day and economic point of view? Thank you.
Hello? Yes. Okay, thank you very much for your question. That's a great question. And I think it's important to acknowledge the challenges ahead as well. I think it's unlikely, in my opinion, that geothermal alone would displace the petrochemical industry for energy supply, and particularly if you're including other fossil fuels like coal as well. I think we need, in the renewable space, which is one of the reasons I think the work being done here in the ministry is so important, is we need to look at all of our options, and we need to work on all of them simultaneously. So wind, solar, biomass, renewable biomass, hydrogen production, and geothermal is a piece of the puzzle. I do believe we can, with that collective renewable energy, and including hydro as well, of course, I do believe that can displace fossil fuel as the major source of energy. There's no other option, is my opinion, and I believe that it can be done. Nuclear will also have a role in some countries for sure, and so I think we need to. One of the things that we've touched on with our colleagues Mas earlier is that to make that happen, the economics needs to work as well, which is why looking at more than just electricity production is so important, looking at direct use, looking at minerals, co-production of minerals. That's why I think that's important in the short term, medium term, to make that transition possible. But I think it is possible, and it will happen. My last point on your question is, I think as we see an increased share of renewables, and particularly intermittent renewables, into the energy mix, what we see happening in places like California is that wind and solar can produce 100% of the energy requirements at some parts of the day. And so we need geothermal to not just be base load, but it needs to be load following. And so there's work to be done around looking at how to make geothermal more dispatchable. My colleagues tell me that the technology exists for that already, but it's actually more of an economic issue around how to make geothermal dispatchable, essentially paying people not to run it if it isn't required. So there's a lot, I think, the technology's there, the opportunities there for renewables with the support of geothermal to displace fossil fuels. We need the political and economic will to do it. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Agree, John. So yeah, like in many other countries, that the electric sectors is become more and more flexible, and I think that Indonesia have to become more flexible too. And as a government's official, it is our roles to propose or to adapt the policy so that the renewable energy penetration can increase. And maybe for the second question, please, Mas Arya.
Thank you very much. My name is Arya from Polytechnic and Energy and Mineral Akamigas, Cepu. I have a question about, maybe it's a little bit technical. From your presentation, it's quite interesting about the uncertainty quantification. So from our Geothermal Institute research that has been done today, what is the position of the uncertainty quantification? Maybe from 1 until 10. And there is any chance to improve that? Or this maybe in today, we the level of uncertainty quantification is 7 maybe. And then there is in the future any chance to improve maybe from the method or from the variable and etc. And because uncertainty is one of anticipating in especially in subsurface, because we don't know exactly what in the subsurface until the drilling has been conducted or has been finished. Okay, thank you.
Terima kasih, Arya. That's a great question. And, you know, unfortunately, I would say in the geothermal industry, our uncertainty quantification at the moment is about a 2. With this technology that we're using with our partners, we're getting closer to a 6, but there's a long way to go to a 10. I think it will happen, and it will happen fast. A lot of our partners and clients now expect uncertainty quantification on our forecasts as standard. You know, it's technically challenging and innovative. So this is like a lot of advanced technology. It's not ready to teach immediately. I think in 5 years it will be standard and it'll be easier to teach. I think we all know of examples in Indonesia and in New Zealand and around the world of unsuccessful geothermal developments. It's not a problem unique to any country. We also all know examples of successful projects which have very uncertain data. And it's interesting when I work with my colleagues around the world, they say, oh, well, obviously our data looks terrible. We didn't do TFTs that month, and we didn't allow the downhole temperatures to heat up long enough at the start. And I have to tell them, look, it's the same in New Zealand. No one gets it perfect. So understanding the uncertainty in the input data and how that influences the uncertainty in the forecasts so that the decision makers can make the best informed decision is really important. And I think, you know, I said that we're at about a 6 at the moment, even without innovative technology. And that's because we're working with partners in the US and in the University of Auckland at how to include and also in Europe, how to include the operational and economic uncertainty into the forecasts as well. It's one thing to predict what the flow rates and enthalpies might be coming out of your wells, but when you're a decision maker, you don't care about kilograms per second, you care about megawatts and dollars or rupiah. And so there's plenty of work to do to bring that together. You know, with these advanced tools, what we're trying to move towards is more representative digital twins, which is the idea of having a digital twin as a digital representation of the whole system, including well bores and power plant and steam field, so that the stakeholders can test ideas more rapidly, more efficiently, and make better decisions. So yes, it is technically challenging. We're only halfway there, but the improvements in the last 5 years have been incredible. So 5 years ago, I would have uncertainty quantification of geothermal resources there was no work at all on it. And now it's a standard practice in our group. So it's huge progress, but lots more to do and lots of opportunities to work together on it. Terima kasih.
Okay. Well, I will up another session for those who attend here. If there is no question, perhaps I want to point out some of questions that addressed in the Zoom platform. The first one is from Santi Ardi from our geological agency team. Basically our geological agency conduct the 3G survey in the early exploration phase. And also we also conduct thermal gradient in several locations. So the question is, how can the University of Auckland strengthen the geothermal exploration in the early stage? Is this just through the modeling methods? And what is your suggestion to maximize the quality of our geoscience data?
That's a great question. I'm a modeling expert, so that's what I've focused on today, but we do a lot of work at the Geothermal Institute and the University of Auckland on many other aspects of geothermal technology. So there are new technologies that my colleagues would be better at describing in the geosciences, but I'm certainly aware of using geophysics and wave splitting techniques, using relatively inexpensive monitoring of micro earthquakes to look at the where the liquid water and the vapor and the boiling zones are occurring. For systems like hot geothermal in Indonesia and New Zealand, that could have a lot of potential. It's quite exciting. That's being led by the team in Berkeley, and they've already applied it to some of the systems in Taiwan. So I think that's an exciting new space to watch in terms of geoscientific techniques. My colleagues in Europe and also at GNS have also been talking about using downhole measuring devices for MT and conductivity, as well as the above ground arrays, and they particularly for low temperature resources. There's some good studies that show that a downhole conductivity measurements might be very useful for identifying the distribution of the hot fluid. So it's all about characterizing where we think the hot fluid is. And modeling is a key part of that early exploration stage, because the models tell us how the hot fluid could occupy the space it occupies. We can, if we just draw conceptual models that we don't run numerical models of, then it can be easy to come up with something that's doesn't physically agree with the distribution of heat and mass that's possible. Another aspect, I've got a PhD student starting this year, and we're also looking at it from one of the New Zealand government grants applications, is to look at using geochemistry more widely, so that we can, particularly again for low enthalpy systems, to use monitoring data of different geochemistry components to help constrain how the geothermal fluid's moving in the shallower subsurface, as a way of understanding the extent of the resource before you drill wells. And look, drilling wells is expensive, much more expensive than other forms of gathering information. So we want to use all of these new techniques in geoscience and all of the best new modeling techniques to give us the best estimate of what the resource is doing before you spend a lot of money drilling the wells. I think we know there's limited budgets in developing new greenfield systems, and so we need to use the best innovative technology to improve our chances.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. I agree with you because in New Zealand there are so many direct use application in there, producing with the geothermal shallow and low medium enthalpy, but the case in Indonesia is still limited. And I believe that our colleagues from the Geological Agency also wants to improve their data in this shallow geothermal system so that the government, the geological agency can provide data for direct use applications. And perhaps next questions. Yes, please.
Hey, John. Thank you for coming to us. My name is Dian. Actually, I'm not really understand about technical geothermal because my background knowledge is legal. But it's interesting and glad to hear from the expert. The question is, what efforts are being made by University of Auckland, the government, and the public actually in Netherlands, Switzerland, okay, in terms of the legal system so that the energy transition runs synergetical and quickly in Auckland, actually. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that's a great question and your kind words. It's, we have some advantages in New Zealand in that we have a very open market for our energy, our electricity system. So first, let me just talk about electricity first. And so that means that we have, I'm not an expert in the electricity market, but I know that my colleagues are, and that work also in the institute and the university. And so we operate on a short-term spot market for the pricing, and so we have different challenges around how to encourage more renewable supply. And so our legal and our financial framework are quite different. So as I mentioned before, our challenge is really about how to, if we're going to displace the last 10 or 15% of our electricity system, which is based on fossil fuels, then we are going to have to look at ways in the legal and financial framework to have some of our electricity generation not being used unless it needs to be used. And that's quite hard to do in a purely open market. We're going to have geothermal energy ready to use, but on an open market, you don't get paid if you don't use it. So we're going to need to look at our market and say, well, do we need a mechanism to pay for spare capacity so that we can do that load following I was talking about? So there's definitely work to do in New Zealand. I'm not an expert in Indonesia by any stretch, but I know there are also lots of challenges here around how to structure the power purchase agreements, for example. So, you know, I'm very glad that there are lawyers in the room and finance people in the room, because these are challenging problems. As I said before, I think we haven't solved all the technology problems, but we've got a lot of good technology solutions, and a lot of what we need now is to also look at the regulatory framework. In terms of the rest of the energy system, I think we have a long way to go in New Zealand as well. We, as Jennifer pointed out, we're a small country in terms of population. We're only 5 million people spread over an area about the same size as Sumatra. So it's quite sparsely populated. And that makes challenges for displacing fossil fuels out of our transport system, because a lot of rural communities at long distances, it's difficult to switch everyone onto electric vehicles when you're traveling long distances and not necessarily having good charging infrastructure. So hydrogen, I think, is a possibility for New Zealand, particularly because we have such a high level of truly renewable energy and carbon neutral electricity that we can make properly green hydrogen. So we're quite lucky in that regard. But there are a lot of challenges in this space. We need smart people working together to try to work through the legal and regulatory framework as well. Terima kasih.
Yes, John. Actually, I have one general topic questions. Apart from the geothermal things, technical subsurface things, I wonder what is the ratio of male and women and female students in the geothermal program or in the Master of Energy program, and how the university or the Geothermal Institute encourage the women students to apply to study in Auckland?
That's a great question. Thank you, Marcelia. It varies. I think for the Masters of Energy program, Bart van Kampen leads that program, and as he's part of the Geothermal Institute as well, he'll have the exact figures, but it tends to be quite close to gender parity in Masters of Energy. The Masters of Energy covers all of the energy systems, not just geothermal. When we look at the geothermal component, it's generally a little bit lower, but it's still, I think this year it's still probably 30% women, 70% men. So quite good representation, not as good as we want. We want 50-50, obviously. Everyone in the Geothermal Institute is a member of Women in Geothermal wing. And if you're not a member of wing, you should join. It's a great organization, and men can be members as well. The idea is promoting gender equality and promoting women as role models in geothermal. So men can do that, promote that as well. I think I'm really pleased to see a lot of women in leadership roles in the New Zealand geothermal industry. The CEO at Contact is a woman. The new CEO at GNS Science is a woman. The person, it's Isabel Shamford leads the energy group at GNS, and Sam Alcaraz, Samantha Alcaraz is also one of the leaders at GNS.
Our director general is also a woman.
Yes.
So I think it's good to have more women participant in the industry. And if I'm not mistaken, there are several story or experience that Indonesian female geothermal students that having a baby, having a birth during her study in the University of Auckland. So I think it's not a reason whether we are male or female. I think the opportunity is very wide for both genders, and geothermal industry is not also a male oriented sector. So I think it's good to have more women participant in the industry.
I think you probably know that a few years ago now, our Prime Minister, while she was Prime Minister, had a baby, and she still continued to be a great Prime Minister. And as you mentioned, one of our students, she had a baby at the start of the year, and 3 weeks later, she was back doing geothermal models. When my wife had a baby, I needed 3 months to recover. So it is about, women can do anything. So yes.
Apakah kita masih punya waktu? Okay, so since we still have 5 minutes, 25 minutes, sorry, we still actually have plenty of time. So is there any another question from the participants? Sure, Pak Eko.
Thank you, Paulia. John, nice to meet you. Thank you for your presentation. And I'm not going to comment on reservoir modeling, which is you have a great job for the last 20 years. And I just want to comment on lithium because on your several last slide, you mentioned about lithium and particularly Indonesia. Not great, but we have significant resource of lithium from geothermal brines. And based on your experience and New Zealand experience, what does it take for Indonesia to thrive and to support the energy transition, particularly to support the electric vehicles industry? Thank you. They'll be all.
That's a great question. Thank you very much, Terima kasih. Look, I'm not an expert in the technical process of extracting the minerals from the brine, but my group and led by myself, we've become experts at understanding how to get the best brine to the surface. And so I think there's a lot of work we need to do as an international industry around optimizing the processes for extracting the minerals from the brine. And it's a great opportunity, as you say. It's not, in New Zealand, where I think our concentrations are even lower than here in Indonesia, but it's still a good opportunity if we can improve the technology to extract those minerals from the brine. There's great potential there. And the piece that we've done a lot of work on is understanding that distribution of the mineral-rich brine in the subsurface. And essentially what you're trying to do is obviously push the mineral-rich fluid towards your production wells, and then you have to re-inject the fluid once you've removed the minerals. And so then the idea is you're going to be re-injecting diluted geothermal fluid without any minerals left in it, or the valuable minerals are removed. And so you need to try to control how quickly the dilute fluid spreads back towards your production. And what we found, this was in the study we did last year in Salton Sea with Berkeley, is it's really important to be thinking about your re-injection flow rates and locations to try to control, it's what we call, it's the chemical breakthrough. So usually when we're thinking about geothermal energy, we think about the thermal breakthrough. How soon will we see cooler fluid and lower enthalpies hitting production? But when you start thinking about mineral extraction, it's the chemical breakthrough. How soon will we start seeing the diluted, re-injected fluid hitting our production wells? And that happens faster than the thermal breakthrough, because the rock, the subsurface has thermal mass, and it's hot rock. And so the injected fluid heats up as it travels back towards the production. But what our colleagues in Berkeley and several laboratories around the world have shown is there's less in the process of the dilute fluid coming back towards production from where you re-inject it. It's less likely to dissolve and absorb more minerals. That happens much more slowly. That happens over hundreds or thousands or millions of years, not over months or weeks, and so, or even years. And so it's important to understand that process and be able to modeling is the best tool to try to understand how quickly that process happens so that you can, the worst thing would be to invest a lot of money in mineral extraction and have the minerals run out faster than you thought they would. And so planning, not just the economics, but the operationally, how that extraction process is going to take place. We think you're going to need to look at dedicated re-injection wells further onto the periphery of your geothermal system to try to delay the chemical breakthrough. But it depends very much on the specifics of the system and the specifics of the mineral concentrations, because perhaps you will pick up more minerals as the fluid returns in some systems than in others. But these are all parts of the study that you need to do as a proof of concept and then feasibility study. These are really important questions. And I think, the modeling has an important role to play in understanding that. But you do need to understand that if we're going, the whole idea is that the mineral extraction is going to add to the economics of the geothermal system, or even, be the most important part in some of these examples. But you need to make sure you get the economics right. You need to make sure that you're getting the chemistry right. So there's plenty of work to do on it. But it's a big opportunity, as I said, not just economic, but in terms of energy security and having national sources of those rare minerals.
I'm just wondering, still related to the mineral extraction, John. So, what is the impact for the geothermal power projects when we conducted the mineral extraction from the geothermal fluids?
Yeah, that's a great question, Leah. And that's why I was saying it's that there's a lot of important work to be done on the details of the mineral extraction. As far as I'm aware, my colleagues have explained that the simplest and most common approach now does involve cooling the fluid down to ambient temperatures to try to remove the minerals. And as you know, if we're re-injecting essentially cold water, then we need to be much more careful about where we re-inject it. And so if there can be some improvements on extracting minerals and at elevated even 120, 130 degrees, that would make that process much easier, obviously. For our study of the Salton Sea, we assumed that the mineral extraction was not decreasing the enthalpy of the re-injection significantly. That was on the basis of what the operators there had told us, but they're, for commercial reasons, are very secretive of what that technology is at this stage. If they can, in fact, be really valuable, obviously. But it doesn't mean it's impossible. At the same time, we re-inject cold condensate, already. You just need to be more careful about how we do it. And that chemical breakthrough piece, it makes it even more challenging, which is, again, where it's, we want good, robust monitoring. We want good geoscientific studies, and we want good reservoir engineering and reservoir modeling to support those decisions.
Yeah, and that's another reason for us, for the audience, to continue the study to Auckland to learn more about the geothermal extraction minerals and also geothermal energy.
Sure.
Okay, so is there any questions from the audience? Okay, if there is no another question, perhaps I would like to conclude this session with some of point takens. The first one, Indonesia has a long story cooperation with the University of Auckland, especially in terms of the development of geothermal energy. Many experts and projects have been supported by the university. There are a wide range of academic and professional development courses that the University of Auckland have been offered to us. And the geothermal projects have various hidden opportunities, start from the geothermal direct use application, green hydrogen production, mineral extraction, and even carbon capture storage in the geothermal field. And the development of technology can bring the geothermal resource assessment to the next level so that we can reduce the business risk of the geothermal projects. I think that's all from me, ladies and gentlemen. John, I would like to thank you very much to all of you, especially for the audience. Thank you very much for being the wonderful participants.
So yeah, maybe closing statement from Dr. John. Closing statement from Dr. John.
Okay, so please, John, could you please give closing statements from us and invite our participants here?
Well, Tēnā makasi, everyone. It's been such a pleasure being invited here to present today. Pak Bangmang and all of the team, Mas Aulia. It's been a great discussion. As I said, we've started that journey with the MOU recently, and what we're really looking forward to is building a long, fruitful relationship together. Geothermal has a huge role to play in Indonesia and globally, we think, and I think it's the people that will make it happen. You're the future, and it's only by working together and learning from each other that we're going to meet the challenges we have. So, it's been a great pleasure, and thank you all for coming today. Terima kasih.
Okay. Again, thank you for the audience. Thank you for having us. I would like to give the opportunity to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give a big round of applause again to our presenter and Mas Aulia. You can come back to your chairs, Dr. John. So it's such a wonderful and lively discussion, and we got lots of knowledge and insight on sustainable energy transition. So hopefully more and more civil servants from our ministry would like to go and study abroad, especially in New Zealand, related to energy transitions, because we plan to reach net zero emission by 2060 or sooner. And one of the energy is geothermal. Yeah, I think Mas Aulia is one of the experts in our ministry. He knows a lot about geothermal energy. And at the end of the hybrid webinar on sustainable energy transition, we would like to appreciate the presence of the presenter, Dr. John Sullivan, and also moderator, Mas Aulia. We also would like to thank all participants having attended the seminar, both online and offline in this webinar. And I received the information that around 150 participants have attended this seminar virtually, and around, I guess, maybe 60 participants have come to this seminar. Thank you so much, Ms. Dr. John Sullivan, also Dr. Jennifer Rosen, for attending this seminar. And I think I really need your help. We really need your help to evaluate this program by scanning the QR on the fruit box that you have, right? I really need your help to scan the QR on the fruit, on the sliced fruit, on the bar QR on your box. Please read it, because it's really very important for us to evaluate the programs. Thank you so much. And once again, this is a really amazing and productive seminar. We have presenter from University of Auckland. Finally, thank you for attending the webinar, and see you again in the upcoming seminars. And we would like to apologize for for any shortcomings during this program. Once again, please give a big round of applause to this program. Sebelum saya tutup, sorry I speak in bahasa Inggris. Sebelum saya tutup, when I speak, KSDM mohon jawab dengan luar biasa. KSDM luar biasa. KSDM luar biasa. Thank you so much. So, the end of the program, I'll say thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon you. Thank you so much. Now we are going to have 4 sessions together. All of